The glass doors of Silvercrest Grand Resort swung open with a whisper, and Hiroshi Takamada stepped into a world that had forgotten how to see him. His canvas suitcase caught on the doorframe. A young couple in designer sunglasses brushed past without a glance, their laughter echoing off the marble floors. The woman's perfume lingered in the air, expensive and sharp. Hiroshi adjusted the strap of his worn backpack and moved toward the reception desk, his old sneakers squeaking softly against the polished stone. The lobby sprawled before him like a cathedral of wealth. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured rainbows across cream-colored walls. A grand piano sat silent in the corner, its black surface reflecting the faces of guests who belonged here, guests who wore their privilege like a second skin. Hiroshi had designed spaces like this himself, understood the psychology of luxury, the architecture of exclusion. He knew exactly what he looked like walking into this particular temple. Wrong. At the front desk, a woman with sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes was laughing at something a guest had said. Her name tag read Megan, guest relations supervisor, gold letters on black. She glanced toward Hiroshi, and her smile flickered like a candle in wind. Her gaze traveled from his graying hair to his simple jacket, lingered on the frayed hem of his jeans, and dismissed him entirely. She turned back to the well-dressed man before her, her laughter returning full force. Hiroshi waited. He had learned patience from his mother, who had waited in lines like these when he was young, clutching his small hand while store clerks served everyone else first. The memory sat in his chest like a stone. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Other guests arrived, were greeted, were processed. A woman in a fur coat despite the mild weather, a family with matching Louis Vuitton luggage, a businessman barking into his phone about stock options. Each one received Megan's attention immediately. Each one was seen. Hiroshi stood at the counter's edge, invisible. "Excuse me," he said quietly, his Japanese accent coloring the English words with soft edges. Megan held up one finger without looking at him. The gesture was casual, practiced, the kind of dismissal that happened 1,000 times a day in places like this. She finished typing something on her computer, her long nails clicking against the keys like tiny hammers. Another guest approached, a younger man with slicked back hair and a Rolex that caught the light. Megan's face transformed. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Silvercrest Grand Resort. How may I assist you today?" The man with the Rolex was helped. His reservation was found. His complimentary upgrade was arranged. He was offered champagne, directed to the spa, thanked profusely, all while Hiroshi waited 3 feet away. When the Rolex man finally left, Megan sighed, audibly, theatrically, and turned toward Hiroshi with the expression of someone asked to clean a toilet. "Yes?" "I have a reservation," Hiroshi said, "under Takamada." Megan's fingers moved over the keyboard with visible reluctance. Her eyes scanned the screen, bored. "I don't see anything under that name." "Perhaps you could check again? I received a confirmation email." "I just checked." Her voice had an edge now, irritation sharpening each word. "Are you sure you booked at this location? Sometimes people get confused and book at our sister property down the mountain." A woman behind Hiroshi in line shifted impatiently. He could feel her presence, her silent judgment adding weight to the moment. "I am certain," Hiroshi said. "The confirmation was for Silvercrest Grand Resort. Room arriving today." Megan leaned back in her chair, her arms crossing over her chest. "Sir, I'm trying to help you, but if there's no reservation in the system, there's no reservation. Maybe—" She paused, and something cruel flickered across her face. "Maybe you should consider whether this is the right fit for your budget. We have a very nice motel about 15 minutes down the mountain. Very affordable. Might be more appropriate." The words hit Hiroshi like ice water. Not because they surprised him, he had expected something like this, but because they were identical to words he had heard 37 years ago, directed at his mother when she had tried to rent an apartment in a nice neighborhood. The landlord had smiled that same smile, had used that same tone that pretended to be helpful while delivering an insult wrapped in concern. His mother had held his hand tighter that day, had lifted her chin and said in her careful English, "We will find somewhere that sees us." They had walked away together, and she had not cried until they were safely in their car. Hiroshi's hand trembled slightly at his side. He steadied it. "I would appreciate," he said, his voice still quiet, but carrying something new now, something steel-edged. If you would check your system one more time. The name is Takamada. Takamada. Megan rolled her eyes, and turned to the person behind Hiroshi. I'll be with you in just one moment, ma'am. I'm so sorry for the wait. If you're enjoying this story, please hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss these powerful moments that remind us what truly matters. Before Megan could dismiss Hiroshi entirely, a man in an expensive navy suit emerged from a door marked management. He was tall, silver-haired, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never been told he didn't belong anywhere. His name tag identified him as Victor Hale, resort manager.
Victor assessed the situation with one sweep of his eyes. The agitated supervisor, the patient queue forming behind, and the out-of-place man in the worn jacket who was clearly causing some kind of problem. "Is everything all right here, Megan?" His voice was smooth, authoritative, the voice of someone used to solving problems by removing them. "This gentleman says he has a reservation, but there's nothing in the system under his name," Megan said, her tone suggesting the problem was the gentleman, not the system. Victor turned to Hiroshi with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sir, I apologize for any confusion. Sometimes there are technical issues with our booking system. However, I'm afraid we're completely booked this weekend. Perhaps I can recommend the motel down the mountain," Hiroshi finished quietly. "Yes, your colleague has already suggested this." Something flickered across Victor's face, surprise perhaps at being interrupted. "Well then, if you've already been offered alternatives, I'm not sure what else we can do for you. Silvercrest Grand Resort maintains certain standards, and our rooms are priced accordingly. I'm sure you understand." The dismissal was complete. Victor had already begun to turn away. "I understand very well," Hiroshi said. His voice hadn't risen, but something in it made Victor pause. "I understand that you believe you know who I am based on how I am dressed. I understand that you have decided I do not belong here without checking whether I have paid for the right to be here. I understand that this is not the first time you have made such decisions about people." Victor's face hardened. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave?" Hiroshi's eyes met Victor's steadily. "Yes, I thought you might." The lobby had grown quieter. Other guests were watching now, some with curiosity, others with the uncomfortable awareness of witnessing something that wasn't quite right but wasn't quite wrong enough to intervene. And that's when she appeared. Aria Lawson had been carrying a tray of empty glasses from the lounge area, her white shirt crisp despite being 7 hours into her shift. She was young, maybe 25, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and the kind of tired eyes that spoke of long hours and longer dreams. She'd been moving through the lobby on autopilot, her mind on the Japanese literature assignment she needed to finish that night, when something made her stop. It was his hands. The man at the reception desk had his hands clasped in front of him, and they were shaking, just barely, just enough. It was a gesture she recognized. Her father had done the same thing when he was trying to hold on to his dignity in the face of something that hurt. A small tremor, a betrayed vulnerability. Aria set down her tray. She moved closer, quietly, and heard the tail end of the conversation, heard the manager's dismissive tone, saw the way the man in the worn jacket stood very still, as if stillness was the only thing keeping him whole. And she saw something else, the careful way he held himself, the quality of quiet strength that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with character, the kind of presence her father had carried, even when the cancer had reduced him to skin and bone. Aria didn't think about protocol or job security or the fact that front desk operations were not her responsibility. She thought about her father telling her in Japanese, "Hito no kokoro wa koi de wakaru." You know a person's heart by their actions. She stepped forward. "Sumimasen," she said softly. "Excuse me." Victor turned, irritation plain on his face. "Yes, what is it?" But Aria wasn't looking at Victor. She was looking at the man in the worn jacket, and she switched languages midstream with the ease of someone who had grown up speaking 2 tongues. "Daijoubu desu ka? Are you all right? Otetsudai shimashou ka? Let me help you." Hiroshi Takamada froze. The words hung in the air between them, precise and gentle, spoken in his mother's language with an accent that was foreign but sincere. The same words his mother had whispered to him on his first day of school in America, when he had stood in the hallway paralyzed with fear. The same words she had said to him when his first business had failed, when he had sat at their kitchen table with his head in his hands. "Are you all right? Let me help you." His eyes filled with tears he would not let fall. "Hi," he managed. "Yes. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much." Megan was staring at Arya with open hostility. "Arya, this doesn't concern you. You need to get back to—" "What is his name?" Arya asked, still speaking Japanese, her eyes still on Hiroshi. "Takamada. Hiroshi Takamada." Arya turned to Megan, switching back to English. "Have you checked for the reservation under the full name? Sometimes the system requires—" "I know how to do my job," Megan snapped. "Then do it," Arya said quietly. There was no aggression in her voice, but there was something immovable. "Check again, please." Victor stepped forward, his face reddening. "Miss Lawson, you are a waitress, not a guest relations specialist. You need to return to your station immediately, or I'll—" "You'll what?" Arya looked at him directly. "Write me up for showing basic human decency to a guest?" The lobby was completely silent now. Megan, sensing that the situation was spiraling beyond her control, turned to her computer with exaggerated frustration. Her fingers flew over the keys. She clicked through screens, her expression suggesting this was a massive waste of everyone's time. Then she went very still. Her face paled, her eyes widened. She clicked something else, leaned closer to the screen, and whispered, "Oh my God." "What?" demanded Victor. Megan's voice came out thin. "The reservation, it's here, under Takamada Hiroshi, the Imperial Skyview Penthouse, 3 weeks, prepaid in full." The Imperial Skyview Penthouse, the crown jewel of Silvercrest Grand Resort. $12,000 per night. A suite so exclusive it had its own private elevator, its own staff, its own entrance. Victor's face went from red to white. "That's impossible. Let me see." He practically shoved Megan aside to look at the screen himself. His finger traced the information, his lips moving soundlessly. When he looked up at Hiroshi, something new had entered his expression. Fear. "Sir, there must have been some kind of system error. I didn't." He stopped, seemingly unable to finish any sentence. Hiroshi said nothing. He simply watched Victor with the same quiet patience he had maintained throughout. Arya, standing slightly to the side, felt her heart hammering. She had expected to find a standard room reservation, something that would prove the man deserved basic respect. She had not expected this. "I apologize profusely," Victor was saying now, his voice taking on a desperate edge. "This is completely unacceptable. Of course we have your reservation, Mr. Takamada. If you'll just give me 1 moment, I'll have someone escort you immediately to—" "No." The single word stopped Victor mid-sentence. "No?" he repeated. "I would like," Hiroshi said, his voice still quiet, still careful, "to understand something first. You believed I had no reservation. You believed I could not afford to be here. On what basis did you make this determination?" Victor's mouth opened and closed. "Sir, there was a misunderstanding." "On what basis?" Hiroshi repeated. Silence. "Was it my clothing?" Hiroshi touched the collar of his jacket. "My accent, the color of my skin, my age? I am curious to understand the criteria by which you judge whether a human being deserves your basic courtesy." "Mr. Takamada, please, I assure you." "You assured me of nothing." Hiroshi's voice finally rose, just slightly, just enough to carry. "I made a decision about who I was based on how I appeared. You dismissed me. You insulted me. You suggested I go somewhere more appropriate for someone like me." He paused. "Do you know how many times in my life I have been told to go somewhere more appropriate?"
Victor stood frozen. Hiroshi reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, and withdrew a slim leather wallet. From it, he pulled out a business card and handed it to Victor. Victor looked at the card, all the blood drained from his face. Megan leaned over to look. Her hand flew to her mouth. The card was simple, cream-colored, elegant. It read, Hiroshi Takamada, founder and chairman, Takamada International Hospitality Group. Below that, in smaller text, owner of 72 luxury properties worldwide, including Silver Crest Grand Resort. The silence that followed was absolute. Someone in the growing crowd of onlookers gasped. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Phones appeared, recording now, capturing the moment when the powerful realized they had just broken every rule of the empire that employed them. Victor's hand shook as he held the card. Mr. Takamada, I had no idea. If I had known. If you had known, you would have treated me well, Hiroshi finished. Yes, that is precisely the problem. You would have treated me well because of who I am, not because treating people well is simply what you should do. He turned to Megan. And you? How many others have you dismissed? How many people have stood where I stood, been humiliated as I was humiliated, and had no business card to prove their worth? Megan's face crumpled. Tears started down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. Please, I didn't mean. You did mean, Hiroshi said, not unkindly, but firmly. That is why you must go. Sir, you are terminated, Victor said to Hiroshi, effective immediately. You will be escorted from the property within the hour. You can't. I've worked here for 15 years. And in those 15 years, how many people have you treated as you treated me today? How many have you judged unworthy of basic human respect? Hiroshi's eyes were sad now, tired. You showed me exactly who you are, Mr. Hale. I am simply believing you. He turned to Megan. You as well. Your employment here is finished. Megan sobbed openly now, but Hiroshi had already moved on. He turned to Arya, who stood motionless, her face pale, her eyes wide with the enormity of what had just unfolded. You, he said, and his voice softened completely. You saw me when no one else did. You spoke to me in my mother's language. Do you know what those words meant to me? Arya shook her head, unable to speak. My mother used to say those exact words, Daijobu desu ka, Otetsudai shimashoka, when I was small and the world seemed too big, when I was older and the world seemed too cruel. My mother passed away 5 years ago, and today, for just a moment, I heard her voice again through you.
A tear rolled down Arya's cheek. Where did you learn Japanese? Hiroshi asked gently. Arya's voice came out barely above a whisper. My father taught me. He was a Japanese language teacher at the community college. She stopped, swallowed. He died 2 years ago. Cancer. He always said that language was a bridge between hearts, and that speaking someone's language was like offering them a piece of home. Hiroshi closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, they were bright with tears that finally fell. Your father was a wise man. He would have liked you, Arya said, and then immediately looked embarrassed as if she'd overstepped. But Hiroshi smiled, truly smiled, for the first time since entering the resort. I would have liked him as well. Tell me, why are you working as a waitress? Your Japanese is beautiful, formal, educated. Arya glanced around at all the watching faces, suddenly aware they had an audience. I'm studying to be a cultural interpreter. I want to work with Japanese companies doing business in America, helping them navigate not just language but cultural context. But the program is expensive, and I have to work full-time to afford classes part-time, and she trailed off. I'm sorry, you don't need to hear all this. On the contrary, Hiroshi said, I need to hear exactly this. He paused, considering her with an expression that was both assessing and kind. How much debt do you carry for your education? That's not... How much? Arya hesitated. $40,000, but I have a payment plan, and if I keep working here and taking 1 class per semester, I can finish in about 6 more years. 6 years to achieve a dream, because the world insists you prove your worth through suffering. He shook his head. No, This is unacceptable. Before Arya could respond, Hiroshi turned to address the crowd that had gathered. Hotel guests, staff members, people recording on their phones. Everyone waited for what would come next. My name is Hiroshi Takamada. I own this resort and 71 other resorts around the world. I came here today in secret because I received complaints. Complaints that staff were treating guests differently based on their appearance, their race, their perceived wealth. I wanted to see the truth for myself. He gestured around the lobby, and now I have seen it. I have experienced it. I stood at that desk for 20 minutes and was invisible. I was mocked. I was dismissed. I was told to go somewhere more appropriate. His voice hardened. This ends today. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Effective immediately, Silvercrest Grand Resort and all Takamada International properties will implement the following changes. First, mandatory sensitivity training for all staff, not the kind where you sit through a video and sign a form, but real training with real consequences. Second, secret evaluations. My team and I will visit our properties unannounced, dressed as I am dressed today, and we will see how we are treated. Those who fail these evaluations will be terminated. Several staff members in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Third, Hiroshi continued, we will establish an anonymous reporting system for both guests and staff. If you witness discrimination, you report it directly to my office. No filters, no managers who might suppress it. Directly to me. He paused, his expression growing softer, sadder. Some of you may wonder why this matters so much to me. Let me tell you a story. When I was 7 years old, my mother and I came to this country with almost nothing. She worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices, washing dishes, taking in laundry. And everywhere we went, people looked at her the way you looked at me today, like she was less, like she was nothing. The lobby was utterly silent now. One day, we went to rent an apartment. The landlord looked at her clothes, heard her accent, and said, I don't think this would be appropriate for someone like you. My mother thanked him politely and we left. But in the car, she cried. She cried because she was tired of being invisible, tired of working so hard and still being seen as somehow less than human. Hiroshi's voice cracked slightly. She told me that day, Hiroshi, when you grow up, when you have power, remember this feeling. Remember that everyone deserves to be seen, deserves to be treated with dignity, not because of what they own or how they look, but because they are human. He looked around at the faces watching him. I forgot that lesson today. Not because I wasn't treated well, I expected that, but because I realize I have built an empire and failed to ensure that empire lives by my mother's values. That ends now. Comment below if you've ever felt invisible, ever been judged by your appearance. Your story matters. We see you. Hiroshi turned back to Arya, who was openly crying now, her hand pressed to her mouth. Miss Lawson. Arya, he said formally. Arya, I would like to offer you a position. She lowered her hand. Sir, your debt, all $40,000, I will pay immediately. Your tuition for the remainder of your degree I will cover. And when you graduate, I would like you to work for Takamada International as our Director of Cultural Experience. You will travel to our properties worldwide, training staff not just in language, but in what you called cultural context. You will teach them to see people, really see them. Arya stared at him. I can't. The starting salary is $120,000 per year, plus travel expenses. You will have an office at our headquarters. You will report directly to me, and you will help me ensure that what happened today never happens again at any property that bears my name. I'm just a waitress, Arya whispered. No, Hiroshi said firmly. You are a woman who saw a stranger in distress and offered help in his mother's language. You are a woman who stood up to your manager to defend someone you didn't know. You are exactly the kind of person I need in my organization. He paused. Your father taught you that language is a bridge between hearts. Help me build those bridges in every hotel we own. Arya's tears were flowing freely now. He would have been so proud. He should be proud. You honored him today, and you honored my mother. In my culture, that is a debt I can never fully repay, but I would like to try. Yes, Arya said, her voice breaking. Yes, I accept. Thank you so much. Hiroshi bowed, a formal, respectful Japanese bow. Arya, remembering her father's teachings, bowed back, her hands at her sides, her posture perfect. When they straightened, Hiroshi smiled. Now then, I believe I have a penthouse suite waiting for me. Would you be willing to show me there?
I find I would prefer your company than to any other staff member. Arya laughed through her tears. Yes, of course. Victor and Megan had been escorted away by security during Hiroshi's speech. Other staff members were watching nervously, some with tears on their faces, some with expressions of determination. The crowd of guests had begun to disperse, many of them looking thoughtful, some visibly moved.
Hiroshi collected his canvas suitcase and worn backpack. Arya walked beside him toward the private elevator that accessed the penthouse level. As they walked, Hiroshi spoke quietly. "Tell me about your father. What was his name?" "David. David Lawson." "Tell me about him, Arya." And so she did. As they crossed the marble floors, as they waited for the elevator, as they ascended toward the sky, Arya told Hiroshi about her father, about his terrible jokes and his patient teaching, about the way he made flashcards with drawings on them to help her remember kanji characters, about his last days, when his English had faded but his Japanese remained clear, and how she had sat with him speaking the language he loved until the very end. Hiroshi listened to every word, his eyes never leaving her face, giving her the gift of his complete attention. When the elevator doors opened onto the penthouse level, they stepped into a space that seemed carved from light. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed mountains in every direction, their peaks touching clouds. The setting sun painted everything gold and amber. Arya gasped. She had worked at this resort for 3 years and had never seen the penthouse level. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Hiroshi said softly. "I've never seen anything like it." "My mother never saw anything like it either. She died before I could show her what I had built, what our struggles had created." He walked to the window, his reflection ghostly against the mountains beyond. "I think she would have preferred the view of the mountains to the luxury of the room. She always said the best things in life were free: sunrises, kindness, love." Arya stood beside him, both of them silent for a moment. "I will honor my commitment to you," Hiroshi said finally, "but I want you to know it is not charity. I am a businessman, and what I'm doing is investing in exactly the kind of person my company needs. You will work hard. I will expect excellence, and in return, you will help me build something that would have made both our parents proud." "I won't let you down," Arya said. "I know." Hiroshi turned to face her. "But I also want you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter how successful you become, no matter how high you rise, you will never forget what it feels like to be overlooked, that you will always see the person others walk past, that you will always speak kindly to the person who seems to need kindness most." Arya thought of her father, of his gentle corrections when she was rude as a teenager, of his insistence that cruelty was always a choice and kindness was always an option. "I promise," Arya said. "I promise." Hiroshi nodded, satisfied. He walked to a side table and picked up a hotel phone and dialed an internal number. "This is Takamada. I need to schedule an emergency meeting with all department heads and senior staff tomorrow morning at 8. Yes, all of them, no exceptions." He paused. "And I need our HR director to begin drawing up a new training program. I'll provide the details in the morning. Thank you." He hung up and turned to Arya. "You should go home, get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day for both of us. Give your notice to your supervisor tonight. I'll arrange for you to be released from your duties immediately with full severance. Report to the administrative offices at 9 tomorrow morning." "Just like that?" Arya said, still trying to process the speed at which her life was changing. "Just like that," Hiroshi confirmed. "The world moves slowly for those without power, Arya, but I have power, and I choose to use it to move quickly when something matters." Arya bowed again, this time with tears of gratitude. "Hontoni arigato gozaimasu. Truly, thank you very much." "Do itashimashite." "You're welcome. Now go. Call your friends, your family. Celebrate. You have earned this." As Arya walked back to the elevator, she paused at the threshold and looked back. Hiroshi stood silhouetted against the mountain sunset, a man who had been invisible just hours before, but who had changed her entire world in the time it took for compassion to speak. "Mr. Takamada," she called. He turned. "Your mother would be very proud of you." Something passed across his face, grief and gratitude tangled together. "I hope so," he said quietly. "I hope so." The elevator doors closed, and Arya descended back to the world she had known, which was already becoming the world she had left behind. 3 months later, Arya Lawson stood in a conference room at Takamada International Headquarters in San Francisco. On the screen behind her, a presentation outlined the new Cultural Sensitivity and Human Dignity initiative that would roll out across all 72 properties. The room was filled with regional managers, HR directors, and department heads from around the world. They had gathered to hear about the changes that Hiroshi Takamada had promised in the lobby of Silvercrest Grand Resort, changes that had already begun to reshape the company's culture. Arya, wearing a professional suit but with a small pin on her lapel it bore a Japanese character, nin, meaning person, stood confidently at the front of the room. "The core principle," she said, "is simple. Every person who walks through our doors is a person first, not a wallet, not a status symbol, not a judgment waiting to be made. A person, with dignity, with worth, with a story we will never know unless we choose to see them." She clicked to the next slide, which showed a photo of Hiroshi in his worn jacket and canvas suitcase. "This is our CEO on the day he taught us what we had forgotten, that kindness is not a luxury we extend to those who deserve it. It is the baseline of humanity we owe to everyone." In the back of the room, Hiroshi Takamada sat quietly, listening. Next to him was an empty chair, and on it rested a framed photograph of a woman with kind eyes and gentle smile. His mother, who had taught him to see people when the world had refused to see him. Arya continued speaking, her voice strong and clear, and Hiroshi thought about how one moment of kindness had changed everything, how a waitress speaking words in his mother's language had reminded him why he built this empire in the first place, not to be seen by others, but to ensure that everyone would be seen. The presentation continued, the changes rolled forward, and somewhere in that luxury high-rise, in that room full of powerful people, the ghost of a Japanese immigrant woman who had worked 3 jobs and raised a son on hope smiled, satisfied that her lesson had finally been learned. "We see you, all of you, every person watching this video, no matter who you are or where you're from, you matter. Your kindness matters. If this story moved you, share it. Let it remind someone today that they are seen." The world moved on, as it always does, but in 72 properties across 6 continents, something had shifted. Staff members who had been taught to judge began to learn to see. Guests who had been overlooked began to be welcomed, and the empire built by a man who had once been invisible became a place where no one had to feel that way again. Because one waitress had spoken kind words in Japanese to a stranger who needed to hear them, and because that stranger had remembered his mother's lesson and had the power to change the world with it.